Greetings, friends. Welcome back to another episode of Dreamscapes. Today we have our friend John Sacco from the East Coast, USA. He is a personal development coach. You can find him on Instagram at RealJohnSacco, and that'll be links in the description, of course. Right back to our guest in 2 seconds. Would you kindly like, share, subscribe, tell your friends about my program, please? Always need more volunteer dreamers, viewers for my video game playing when I'm just hanging out in the evenings. You're welcome to join. 15 currently available works of historical dream literature. You'll find that at benjaminthedreamwizard.com. The most recent offering, The World of Dreams by Havelock Ellis, with a concurrent audiobook also on this channel. As I said, you'll find all that and more at benjaminthedreamwizard.com, including downloadable MP3 episodes of all of these Dreamscapes interpretation interviews. That's enough about me. John, thank you for being here. I appreciate your time.
Thanks for having me. Glad to be here.
Good deal. So what is, I think everyone has a concept of what it is to engage in development, what a coach does. But what is your, I hesitate to say brand, like what is your brand? Because that carries meaning when like branding, but what's your style, I suppose, or how does your process go?
So it's unique to every individual, of course, but the main thing will be your body and your mind work together. And I try to play with that synergistically. So we'll make sure that you're getting enough physical activity and eating right. And then we'll make sure that your belief systems, your standards are all at a level to move you forward in life and achieve your goals.
Very cool. Yeah, there's a tremendous amount of, I say this all the time, there's so many places to go with that idea. There's a lot of great concepts involved. And one is that body-mind connection. I mean, it's hard to be healthy physically if your brain is broken in a way, if you have unreasonable expectations of yourself, if you're miserable, if you've got psychological issues that are holding you back. Conversely, it's hard to be psychologically healthy if your body's broken, if you're not taking care of yourself physically the way you need to. It's a great foundation to address those two. But I found
exactly.
There's a lot of psychology in the whole coaching genre, so to speak. You got to really kind of work with people, and definitely on that personal level.
Yeah. I mean, I might have taken a couple of psychology classes in college, but I'm not like anything major psychology or anything.
Yeah. No, and a lot of these principles are things that it's interesting because I don't consider the fact that I have a degree to mean anything necessarily. I don't look at a piece of paper as significant. The knowledge is, and actually the knowledge is available to anybody. And actually, a lot of that knowledge is just wisdom of the ancients. And a lot of that is passed on in your family, amongst your friends. You get it from a variety of media sources. And certainly in the age of YouTube, you can look up any subject and there's going to be a video on it. Someone's going to have something to say. So yeah, I have tremendous respect for people based on their knowledge and abilities more than a degree, more than the idea of credentialism never appealed to me. There are a lot of PhD idiots out there, and they are, what did you learn in school? So anyway, I would never look down on someone who's using just practical everyday wisdom and the knowledge they've acquired. And most people, I would say, don't realize how much we are all autodidacts. We teach ourselves all kinds of stuff. Most everything we know, we taught ourselves, even if by listening to someone else. I said a lot. Sorry, go ahead.
No, you're good. And I agree with all of that. Real life experience and just being able to tell people what you've learned on your path always helps. I mean, I've done a lot of independent research. I've read so many books, gone to YouTube for information. Plus, I have a little bit of college background in psychology. I just kind of bring it all together. And I go to the gym all the time. I've done ultra marathons. So I got the physical part, I got the mental part. And it's mostly just what I've brought myself through. And, like I was talking before this, even my dreams have changed as I've developed myself as a person. So I just want to help other people who are on this journey and need somebody to guide them through it. And that's why I'm in this industry now.
For sure. Yeah. And that's a very powerful thing too, is that your dreams will change over time. You're definitely not going to have the same dreams at 35 that you had at 13. Your life is different. Your circumstances are different. Your concept of the world changes. You've had more exposure to different types of experiences that crystallize themselves into iconic imagery of how you understand something. I was just thinking about this last night too, the idea of the movie, The Matrix, and how that concept of being stuck in the Matrix, or speaking of YouTube, the broader concept of taking the red pill, the truth as such, to wake up to the real world. These things are, that didn't exist until that movie kind of came along, crystallized it in those images. You see Neo waking up out of the goo, and it's like, this isn't anything I've ever experienced before. I mean, that point in the movie kind of broke me for a moment. I'm like, I was in that space of, I don't know what's happening anymore. This appeared to be one kind of thing, and now it is something completely different. The filmmakers were so, I'm rambling, but it's 2 seconds, I'll wrap it up. Were genius in that, is that they wanted to put the movie goer in the position of feeling what Neo felt as he woke up there. They structured the movie one way and then broke that expectation, shattered it, paradigm shift, whole new world. This is completely different, just as he was experiencing at that moment. I thought that was genius. This was all related to something.
Oh, yeah.
The idea of personal development, growth, change over time. I don't know if you have any comments. I'm a terrible interviewer.
Oh, no, you're good. I agree with that. The Matrix was definitely a big thing for me too. I still reference the Matrix in so many situations that people are probably tired of me referencing it. So I appreciate the reference there.
For sure. Yeah. And just definitely also the idea, I think I remembered kind of where I was trying to go with that, is that, it very often takes a kind of Morpheus. And that's interesting that, it's also for the Matrix, lots of fantastic dream references, but it takes someone else helping hold a mirror up to you. It's like we can't see the back of our own head for a haircut. We can with a mirror, and people can be our mirror. They can say, here's what I see that you may not be aware of. Here's how I may be able to structure the understanding of this perspective in a way that makes sense to you and you can make it useful. So, I mean, the idea of having a second person to bounce ideas off of, to get feedback from, it can be often indispensable. I mean, there's some changes we can't make without it.
Good point.
just validating the concept of, why would someone want a coach or need a coach, or why would they ask anybody for a second opinion ever? It's that entire concept of making use of that functionality that another person can offer that you just can't get on your own, I think.
Yeah, a lot of times people don't even see the obstacles that are in their way. They don't realize they're getting in their own way. I know I had these problems for so long, and getting myself out of this helps me help other people get out of their situations. And it's just that concept, like you were saying, like Morpheus showing Neo. Like, I don't want to say I'm a Morpheus because that kind of makes me feel like I have a big head about things. Right? But yeah, I mean, I'll talk to people and they're like, I didn't even realize that was a problem I had. And I'm like, yeah, I just had to point it out to you, and now we can work on moving forward.
Yeah, definitely. No, I get that too. Like, believe me, you're talking to a guy who calls himself a wizard. Like, it's talking about having a big head. It's just big hair. It's not really a big head, but you also have to be humble about that too. Like, I'm only human. There's a limit to my knowledge. I would say that very, very Socrates, like, you stay within what you know, and you can be very confident about some things. There's different confidence levels. And I'd say as long as you're working in your expertise, you can make some pretty definitive judgments and recommendations and say, I think based on this problem, this would be an effective solution. Let's work out how to implement it. That process of kind of describing what we're going through, seeing it clearly, and then deciding what, if anything, you want to change about it, and then mapping a path to get there step by step, tremendously useful. I mean, that's almost in a way just the art of psychology itself.
Right. You gotta have a plan, and you gotta know where the starting point is to get to the finish line. Otherwise, the map is useless if you don't know where you're starting from.
Yeah. Yeah. If you have no goal, you got, it's hard to pick a direction. So you got to aim yourself at something. Yeah.
For sure.
That basic idea. I don't know if you've got, any particular examples of how you've helped people put together solutions to problems that come to mind in terms of, demonstrating any unique principles. I don't prepare for any of these. We just talk to people. So I'm making this stuff off the top of my head. And some of these questions are very vague and I don't even know what I'm asking. But if that makes sense to you,
I think so. So if somebody's coming and let's say they're trying to, a most basic thing would be they're trying to lose weight. They're trying to be more confident so that they can excel at work, and maybe they're shooting for a promotion. Maybe they have their own business and they just want to be better in sales calls, whatever it is. I'll walk them through the process of getting their self into like a workout routine and eating right. And if they want to drop fat, we'll drop the fat. Then as you go through this process, you not only end up looking better to yourself and you feel more confident, but you build a discipline, and the discipline of sticking to a routine, sticking to a diet also makes you more disciplined outside of that realm and goes into the rest of your life. So then you're more organized and disciplined with your work stuff. And then at work, you kind of stand out more. You're more confident. You get that promotion, and it all just stacks, and the wins just stack and stack and stack. And, along the way, you might fall off, and I help you get back on the path. And it's just a little back and forth thing until you get where you're trying to go. And the sky is just the limit.
for sure. Yeah. I'd say that very well encapsulates the concept of the journey of 1,000 miles. That it begins with a single step and then you got to kind of keep walking, but you make progress.
Right. For sure.
I guess I'm a little off this morning. Like I said earlier, I got up way too early today, so my interview brain is not kicking in terms of like interesting questions to ask you. I don't know if you have more things to say about kind of your business and how it works, unique success stories, things of that nature. I don't know.
Right, that's a vague one.
I know.
Unique,
I'm all
unique,
kinda,
right?
Yeah.
I feel like everyone is unique. So
no, that's very true.
Whatever things people are going through.
I guess I'm kind of fishing around for more conversation topics in terms of
right.
highlighting additional principles in psychology or philosophy. That's kind of where I go with a lot of this stuff. We've talked about the idea of a paradigm shift of coming out of a matrix of a kind. A lot of times we get trapped in ways of thinking that we don't realize aren't entirely accurate.
That's a lot of it. Like disempowering beliefs. If you think that you can't do things, just like your self-talk, what you say you can or can't do. That's another way it all works. Like, even like I bring it back to the gym always, because it could be going for a run, whatever, but physical motion, physical activity, when you're like, oh, I woke up this morning and I got through this whole thing that was hard. And then later on in your day, when something feels hard, you're like, you know what, I could probably get through this because I've gotten through something hard already. Like I wake up at 4 a.m. and go straight to the gym. So by the time the sun's coming up, I've already gotten through a hard workout. So like today it was rainy. I didn't really feel like even going, but I still went. I still did what I had to do. And now the rest of my day has just been moving along pretty smoothly. I've been productive, and whatever I have to do, I get done without thinking like, oh, maybe I can't do this today. Like I don't really have those thoughts anymore because I'm so used to having positive self-talk now. I used to have a lot of negative self-talk. I used to be the most negative person ever. So it's a big deal for me. And a lot of people who are in the same situations, when you change that inner conversation with yourself, you become a whole different person and you're so much more capable after you start giving yourself the positive reinforcement you need on the inside of this this dome right here.
Yeah, definitely. I think there's two very powerful concepts there. Definitely the idea of self-perception and self-talk and being trapped in perhaps negative thinking, but also that building of the discipline in a way. The first thing that came to mind when you were talking about that was a lot of people do things because they feel like it. And that's a very, what am I trying to say? It's an unreliable measure in a way. It's like, if I had to phrase it as kind of an aphorism or sum it up, it's like, don't do something because you feel like it, but because it needs to be done or it's the right thing to do.
Exactly. That's the discipline where, your motivation, people are always looking for motivation, and motivation comes and goes. Like I was saying today, I didn't have any motivation in the morning. I woke up, my alarm went off. I was like, fuck, I don't feel like getting up.
I know,
but
dragging yourself out of bed.
Got up. I put my phone on the other side of the room. So like when the alarm goes off, I get up, but I can't hit snooze. I don't even have the snooze option on. You can turn that off on your phone. I make sure I set myself up as much as possible to get going. But, I wake up, I'm like, what day of the week is it? Oh, it's a gym day. I'm going to the gym. So it's not like I say I feel like it or not. It's like, this is what I have to do, and I'm going to do it. And then again, that everything else in life, it's like when I say I'm going to do something, I do it because I keep promises to myself. I have integrity, and that's something you build. It's not something that happens overnight, and it's not like just motivation. It's that inner discipline where you have just kept those promises so many times. You've stacked all those wins, and now you just believe in yourself, and when something needs to be done, you go do it.
Oh, for sure. And I mentioned earlier the idea of ancient wisdom, and there's a lot of what you're saying, comports say with stoicism in a way, and a lot of people get that confused. They think it's to be unemotional. It is rather to be not controlled by emotion.
Exactly.
In a sense. I was going somewhere with that. No, I'm losing it. The idea of setting yourself up for success. Oh, they say, to become a virtuous person, you have to practice virtuous habits, and then the habits become what you are. In a sense, I've said it a lot of different ways. A recent formulation was, what we do is what we worship. In a way, it's what we do is what we believe. And so one way to do it, you can also do it backwards. You can come to believe or embody something based on what you do. It's setting yourself up for success. The idea of putting your alarm, your phone and the alarm across the room. A lot of people would benefit, I think, from taking that approach to life in general, of setting yourself up for success. It comes down to the idea of procrastination of stuff too. It's like, if you find yourself thinking, well, that's a problem for tomorrow's me, you are setting yourself up, that person you will be tomorrow, to reap the consequences of what you didn't do today. Just as you will be, and then you will become that person. You're gonna wake up tomorrow, barring accident, injury, etc. So thinking of yourself as that person who will exist in the future, and some other folks, psychology professionals have said, treat yourself like you are someone you are responsible for helping. Imagine what you would say or do on behalf of another person. What would you tell them was best for them? Tell yourself, do it. Do that thing that you want for someone else because it's beneficial for them. And something as simple as, if you got to get out of bed and you want to stick to that schedule that's important to you, and you know why, put the phone across the room. Set yourself up the night before, so tomorrow morning's you has to fulfill the promise and make themselves better in a way that is going to benefit you. So I'm rambling again, but I love all those.
No, you're good. But yeah, as many systems that you can put into place for your success, because there's always going to be excuses. There's always going to be obstacles. Every day is not perfect. And people who are successful just set themselves up with systems so that they can just run through that, and they know what they have to do. And you can't get stuck when something goes slightly out of order. Then you just pivot and go back into the system.
Absolutely. Yeah. So there's two things there that I think are critical. Number one, we cannot actually, as human beings, function without routine. We actually do need that. We need the world to be at least a little bit predictable, probably more than most people realize. We think
sun up, sun down every day.
every day. Yeah. And the cycle of you got to eat, you got to poop, you got to sleep, you got to,
Right.
Move your body a little bit every day. I think a lot of people, and maybe I don't have the numbers. I can't say it's 67%, but there seems to be a tremendous resistance among some people to the idea of structure and the need for it. And I think most people maybe take a lot of the structure we have around us and that we impose on ourselves for granted. And then there's that little wiggle room on the end where they say, well, I don't really like structure. I like to be freewheeling and do whatever. It's like, if you didn't know where your next meal was coming from, you'd have a problem with that. We need that kind of reliability in life, that kind of routine, a little bit of dependability in the future to kind of say, okay, I can be okay now because that problem has been solved. I don't have to. And then we get a lot of folks ending up with anxiety problems and they can't identify what it is. And maybe in a lot of cases, it's a lack of self-imposed structure that brings an order and stability to your life that makes it safe through predictability. And then there's folks who go the other way and they want way too much rigid structure and they're not adaptable. So, I mean, we need that balance. I would just advocate more for the idea of being aware of the necessary structure that we all exist in and impose upon ourselves to really help people appreciate it more. So.
Yeah, I agree. And as someone who suffered with debilitating anxiety for most of my life, I used to have panic attacks and everything. And I used to just self-medicate to try and deal with it. But, I would drink a bunch of alcohol and then that would make it worse. But since I have had a more structured life, since I've been more disciplined and have more routines, I'm hardly ever anxious about things. I mean, I still have my moments and I'm still working through it. It's like forever. I'll never stop working on myself. But definitely having structure has just action alleviates anxiety, like doing things, making sure you don't just sit there and worry about it. Like you have a plan, you go for it, and you know what to do when things go south. And then that just fixes things, just every day knowing what to expect in the little things. Like even, just a wake up. Like I know I'm going to wake up at this time and I'm going to make sure I get up and go do it. And then I won't have anxiety that I woke up too late. Now I'm behind on everything. And then the whole day is a mess.
Oh, yeah. Oh, and speaking of anxiety, I just had a moment. I hadn't moved my cursor off the record button and I thought none of this was captured. We're fine. We're fine. I just had a mini panic attack and I felt it zing. Two things about what you said there of like action alleviates anxiety. I love alliteration and I also love aphorism. You get a brilliant concept in one tiny nugget that you can, put on a poster. You can remember it very easily, very mnemonic device for, anyway. There's two ways I think that is true, just to kind of go dive a little deeper on those things. Number one is that if you're anxious about something, do something about it. I mean, our anxiety, fear, pain, these are all evolutionary tools. This is not suffering inflicted on us for no reason. This is warning signs about the danger of nature, and all designed to keep us alive so we can reproduce, that baseline thing. But if you're anxious about something, there's a chance it's dangerous to you in some way. And there's a good chance, maybe better than good, that you can do something to be proactive about that, to address it, to, if you're, let's say, a great analogy might be you're driving your car down the freeway. You take your hands off the wheel at 65 miles an hour. The longer your hands are off that wheel, the more anxiety builds because anything could happen. You drift into another car, you hit a bump and go flipping into a ditch. There's something you can do to alleviate that anxiety. You put your hands back on the wheel. You reassert control of the vehicle. So people would look at that and say, well, that's obvious. Like, yes, it should be obvious. Why? But that's a great analogy because we don't maybe recognize as many opportunities in our life to do that. It's like you're feeling anxiety. There's something maybe that is out of control that you could take steps to address, and that action will alleviate the anxiety. You're going to address the cause, the need, the reason for the existence of the anxiety itself goes away. You can just feel better by doing something. That was part one. And part two for me was also, let's say you're having free floating anxiety and you can't put your finger on what it is. Sometimes just doing something helps to dissipate that. You're restless and anxious and you don't know what to do with yourself. You know, as Jordan Peterson would say, clean your room. You got nothing better to do. You're not doing anything. Do something, anything productive. It will necessarily dissipate some of that energy, and probably during that process, something will start. You know, you free your mind to wander by doing some kind of conscious, focused activity. A lot of people use mazes or puzzles. We do a lot of things where our conscious, we work with our hands to do little manipulative tasks, put together literally a puzzle. And then your brain can kind of free float. It's often that lack of attention, just letting it there. Like, I have a problem. I don't know what it is. Not going to focus on it. Just going to let it be. An answer will come to us while we're doing something else. So all of that rant, just to kind of build on what you said, I think it's a genius thing. Action alleviates anxiety. It sure as hell does. I think it's a powerful idea.
Yeah. Like you were saying, like whenever you're anxious, just move, do something. Like I'll personally go take a walk.
Yeah.
Like get outside, get some sunlight, some fresh air, just move, get the blood flowing. And then while I'm walking, I'll reflect on things. And if I don't come up with a solution, then I'll at least walk back home. And then the whole scenery's changed and I get back in, or wherever I am, maybe home, maybe like, but if you're at work, it works for that too. Like if you take a little 15-minute break, go outside real quick, come back, and you might have come up with a solution for your problem. Or at the very least, you changed the scenery for a minute and got out of that situation physically, and then you can come back in and try to problem solve there. So yeah, I totally agree.
That is certainly the idea, and there's something very psychologically powerful about the tangibly, physically changing your scenery. Certainly, if you're sitting on the couch and you're having that free-floating anxiety, or you can't put your finger on it, you're worried about the future, or you're worried about something, you can often break out of a mindset by changing your physical setting. That's also very powerful too. And the concept of taking a walk is as powerful as some of these. I don't know if you've seen or heard. There are labyrinths in tile on the floor in a lot of, say, old churches in Europe. And the purpose was you would just walk these things, and it was designed to kind of fold back on itself so that, by the time you were done, you came back to where you started. It's pointless outside of walking a path that was laid out for you to do something physically so that your mind was free to wander in meditation on your problems, spiritual matters, certainly in a church. But that was the purpose of those things. And you can do that in your neighborhood. You're just walking a cement labyrinth around the block, up and around the corner. You're not going anywhere. You're going home. But you walk away from your door, and your destination is to get back to your door. But it doesn't end up being pointless. It accomplished some things. It didn't change the world. It changed you, changed your mindset, and it breaks you. For the same reason some people say if you're, having, what do they do? They say to some folks who have severe emotional dysregulation issues, if you're freaking out, jump in a cold shower. It will shock your body out of that intense physical emotion. Doesn't work for everybody, but it's a very powerful intervention for some folks, literally changing your physical state to interrupt a negative mental process, which I think is what, go to the gym and developing discipline, getting stronger too. You change your physical being, and that elevates your psychological being as well.
Exactly.
There's nothing like, mastering some physical task and going, hey, I did that. Look at me.
Right. That's exactly what it is.
And I get so dry, get cotton mouth. I'm not even high.
Right.
Well, we've been just chatting for about half an hour. I don't know if you want to jump into the dream stuff. We'll see if we can change your internal mindset with shedding some light in the darkness. Benjamin the Dream Wizard wants to help you pierce the veil of night and shine the light of understanding upon the mystery of dreams. Every episode of his Dreamscapes program features real dreamers gifted with rare insight into their nocturnal visions. New Dreamscapes episodes appear every week on YouTube, Rumble, Odyssey, and other video hosting platforms, as well as free audiobooks highlighting the psychological principles which inform our dream experience and much, much more. To join the wizard as a guest, reach out across more than a dozen social media platforms and through the contact page at benjaminthedreamwizard.com, where you will also find the wizard's growing catalog of historical dream literature available on Amazon, featuring the wisdom and wonder of exploration into the world of dreams over the past 2,000 years. That's Benjamin the Dream Wizard on YouTube and at benjaminthedreamwizard.com.
Oh yeah. So yeah, I guess we'll dive right into it.
Sure, yeah.
I'm gonna go back to maybe I feel like it was like 10 years ago now, but it's this one dream that stuck with me forever, and a lot of weird things happened with it. Do you want me to just start telling it?
Yeah, so I usually use this moment. I forgot to say the speech. So the basic process: I shut up and listen. You tell the dream as a story, beginning to end, whatever you remember, as much as you remember, don't worry about it. Then we're going to go through it again, see if I can see it through your eyes and start to get a better perspective from, I got to kind of be in it to say, okay, well, what do I see here? What do these pieces mean? And then eventually we kind of work together and get an understanding and kind of tells a story about that experience. So yeah, it all starts with just, what do you remember? Anything is sufficient.
Right. Cool. So this dream, I don't remember like where it started, but it ended up, I'm at some big, like towering skyscraper kind of place. And there's some organization in there and they've kidnapped some little girl. And I don't know who this little girl is. I don't know what she had to do with anything, but I had tasked myself with, I'm going to save her. So I go into this building and I'm like searching through it, and I keep getting to these points where there's one of the employees or whoever is in there, they would come with some kind of weird like mechanism that they would like shock me with, and I would just like vibrate, and then I would physically wake up in real life in my bed, and then I would just go like that whole night this happened, and I would go back to sleep and I'd go right back into that same dream in that same like building that I was in. And I'd be still searching for this girl, and they would repeatedly like find me the closer I got and just zap me with whatever it was, and I would physically wake up. And eventually I think I got to the girl and I saved her somehow. I don't really remember how it all ended. I do remember I got up, went downstairs after I finally like got through that whole story, and like I was telling my brother about it and everything because he was still up downstairs on the computer. I was like, this has been the craziest night of my life. I've literally gotten ripped out of my sleep by my dreams. So it kind of felt like I was in another universe at the same time. It was like, like too sci-fi for real life kind of feeling. It was really weird. And I've just never forgotten that dream.
Very cool. Very cool. This, so broad strokes, you might be pleased to know, it is an established, recognized, observed phenomenon that some people, we don't know why. I'd love to be able to give that kind of an answer to folks. Some people, excuse me, have the experience. I was going to say ability, but it doesn't seem to be volitional, but have the experience of waking up multiple times during the night and going back into the same dream. That seems to be more unique or rare relative to the broad swath of dreaming experiences. But it is not unheard of, and it is not well understood. Like, what causes that to happen? Why can some people go back into the same dream and some people cannot? There's a lot of different theories about where dreams come from in terms of, broadly speaking, two classes: your direct real life experiences, you continue thinking about them as you sleep. Then there's also the more conceptual inner life we have while we're awake, which is considering possibilities, theories, abstract stuff. And that can also form dream imagery, exploring concepts in that kind of visual experience form. It puts you in the action in a way, like a main character in a video game, but you're controlling the choices, sort of.
Right. That's kind of what it felt like.
Yeah, fair enough. And so there's a lot of different elements kind of coming together here. Part of it is it's almost a semi. I don't know. Sometimes I conflate these things because I'm not sure how they're connected. But there are some people who can guarantee they do dream about something by thinking about it as they go to sleep. There are some people who can guarantee they don't dream about something specific by thinking about it as they're falling asleep. Very weird dichotomy there, but it's happened. There are people who are lucid dreamers. They can program their dream. I'm going to have a flying dream. I'm going to be in Tokyo. And they do. And that's what it is. And in the dream, they're kind of aware of, I am dreaming and I'm flying and now I'm going to go over here. And they have that experience of choosing their own adventure in their dreams. More commonly, it's involuntary. But that's not exactly true either, because the involuntary nature seems to be that we're not directing it. We don't have this sense of control, but it is our own thoughts. And there is in some ways an involuntary nature to the idea of associative experiences. If I say a word and you instantly think of something, you didn't really choose to think of it. It's almost like telling someone, don't think of a pink elephant. Now you see the image of a pink elephant in your head. You can't help it. So we do that to ourselves. If I say truck, Tonka, kids' toys, playground.
I got tons of those in the other room.
Right? Yeah. And these playground, merry-go-round, teeter-totter, balance, leverage, science, physics. Bam, these things just flow in a connection. And that sometimes ends up how our dreams are. It's like, it's not that these things make no sense, although sometimes they don't. We can't figure out why. But that the spontaneous connections do happen involuntarily, even if it's a subject we have intentionally chosen to concentrate on. Like we get to pick the topic. We don't really get to pick our understanding of it after having thought it through, which is that's fun in a way. If we knew what we were going to believe or think or understand before we ever started considering something, well, we don't actually consider those things. We just take them for granted. I've already made up my mind. So, okay, all of that to be said about you, about your dreams specifically. So there is this, okay, there's also another element. I'm giving you all this background for a reason, because I think all these things are at play, and there's a lot of it. There's also the physical experience you've described of feeling shock to kind of electrical vibrate. Anyone who's been, ever worked on electrical, or I remember when I was younger, I've worked on electrical too, and I've zapped myself. Forgot to turn off the breaker, but I was using some electric hedge trimmers and I cut the cord and it went right up the, right up the hedge clippers and zapped me. And I'm like, whoa, that was unpleasant. It's that vibration. We all know that experience. Have you had a real life experience of mild electrocution?
Like in my hands, but never like the whole body. But that's kind of what it felt like. Like my whole body had that like vibration until I would wake up, and I would fight it too in the dream. I'd be like, "No, I'm not going to wake up this time. You can't do it." And then I would just like, and then all of a sudden I'm out of it. I'm like, "What?" No, I would be so bummed every time I woke up because I was like, I almost had it.
I want to see how this ends. Don't. It's like
right.
Like getting pulled out of a movie in the middle of it. Like someone just eject your seat to your chair. Like, no, what? Come on, we're right at the good point. So there's and this is to speak to the broader phenomenon of there are physical sensations we can have as our body is lying in bed, which can feed into that. So you would say the example of a person who's laying on their arm and it goes to sleep. In their dream, they have the experience translated into that dream imagery of, well, suddenly, my legs don't work. Well, it's not your arm, and it's not just the arm being asleep. It's not always that literal. It's like some part of my body has become dysfunctional, and here's how I'm representing it. There's people who have unique experiences. One guy described dreaming he was climbing like Mount Everest. It wasn't that exactly, but the idea of being knee deep in snow and just freezing. Turns out he kicked off the covers when he rolled over. And so he woke up from that experience like, oh, I'm cold. And he puts himself in, goes back to sleep, different dream or no dream at all. So there's real physics. So all of that to say, were you able to identify any sensations like a pinched nerve or a numb hand that might have led to this interpretation of shock?
No, that's what confused me about it the most. Because I've had dreams like you were saying, where I woke up to sleep and in the dream, I had like a dog biting my arm or something.
Yeah.
And I'm like, and then I wake up and I'm like, oh, like my arm's asleep.
Yeah. Okay, fair enough. Well, so part of being a dream wizard is kind of knowing these broad strokes things and ruling out certain experiences. Like if you'd say, yeah, every time I woke up, my arm was asleep, I go, well, that might be the shock thing. And it's translating in there. Now, that doesn't mean we understand why it appeared in the dream in that form. But now we're able to say, okay, we rule out the physical. This doesn't seem like it's coming from that element. There's something else about being shocked into awakeness that is more relevant there. That each time these shockings happened, it drove you out of the dream. And there's associative ways we understand the idea of shock, and sometimes the literal, literally to be shocked by electricity stands in for the metaphorical, a shocking revelation that accomplishes a paradigm shift. So there's that possibility. We haven't gotten there yet. We haven't even started. This is all like preamble. I hope I didn't even ask you about your time. Are you, you got a heart out or,
Oh no, we're good. I have at least another hour.
Okay, good. Hopefully I won't, keep you entirely that long, but I also don't want anyone to feel rushed. I've gotten interviews done real quick, but one time I had a 4.5 hour chat. That was fine. It was a long dream, many elements. And I just keep talking as long as the dreamer has more questions. So I'm in for the marathon. So that's more what I do. I mean, you run marathons. I more do marathons of the mind. I'll just keep focusing. This is it's one way the autism helps me too. Like I can do this all day, literally.
Oh yeah.
So, okay. Towering skyscraper. We begin with that. Do you have an image of being on the ground looking up? Were you in the lobby and you just knew it was a skyscraper? What was your, experience?
I know I was on the outside of it before I was in it, and I would like look up. I think it was like nighttime too, and it was all lit up.
Okay. When you think of that kind of building, do you have any immediate connections that come to mind? Like if you just kind of associate, like I did earlier, words connecting to each other.
Like a city, like somewhere like New York City, but I grew up in New York, so.
Sure.
That might have to do with why there's that imagery.
That was a connection that I thought as well. Well, definitely this is a physical representation of something at least very similar that you have seen in real life. But we want to eventually I'm not putting you on the spot to come up with an answer right now, but what I'm angling towards is why a skyscraper? Why not only a 3-story brick building? Why not a cottage in the woods? What is it about this type of building? So there's going to be something there. I mean, the first thing that comes to my mind in that connection is it's a iconic representation of like business in a way, like big business, like a successful, massive corporation. I don't know if that resonates with you at all in terms of the nature of this bill. I mean, there were certainly employees working there that were an impediment to you. They were actively resisting your efforts. You mentioned some kind of organization. Did you have an idea of what kind of organization it was? I mean, an evil Cobra, Hydra type.
Right. Yeah, that's basically it. They were just like the bad guys, and they kidnapped this little girl, and I had to go save her. That's like about all I know about what their role was.
And no impression at that time of why or what they hoped to accomplish, what their purpose was, what their broader purpose is in the world. I mean, world domination or.
No idea. Like maybe she had magic powers. I don't know, but I have no idea why they wanted her. I remember I guess I saw them kidnap her and bring her up there because I don't know how else I would have known any of that was going on. But I just like tasked myself with I have to save her.
Yeah, and it's people. Not. And dreams are funny this way. It's like we're doing a thought experiment in our sleep, basically a lot of times, not always, but in this case, I think so. Seeing the girl get kidnapped image-wise as a dream experience is indistinguishable from simply standing outside the building and knowing she's in there because she has been kidnapped. So there, in terms of, coming up with an explanation for it, well, how do I know she was kidnapped? You just do sometimes. Or that's the, as I said, thought experiment style. We say, imagine you're on a desert island. With that one, we don't go, well, how did I get there? Is that realistic? How would I live? Like, no, wait, desert island, just go with it. And that's what we do in our sleep a lot of times.
I would ask those questions. I'd be like, how would I end up on this desert?
Sure. Yeah. And that's maybe it could be relevant to the question or proving a point later on. But a lot of times in our sleep, we do exactly that. We go scenario for reasons, go with it. And we show ourselves why that's important to us. What are we actually trying to consider in that thing? So you're outside the building. It's at night. Interesting. Interesting. Why? I don't know, but it is an element that presented itself to you. So everything we show ourselves, and sometimes the things we don't show ourselves, are connected to something. So there's something about this being after the world has gone to sleep. This is not the business of the day. This is the business of the night. There's something about considering this scenario that it maybe only could happen at night, or it is most appropriate that it did. It's most relevant to the setting itself, that this is the kind of thing that would happen at night or only at night or related to the nighttime, the cover of darkness, perhaps. We get all those kind of things happening. And very much being not the business of the day, not something that is, there's things associated with daylight, like, sunlight being the best disinfectant. You see more clearly in the day. It's where things are revealed for what they are, where they cast shadows that it's the light of understanding, or shining a light in the darkness. All these associative things come to our mind, and we just go, does this happen in the day or in the night? And it's definitely night, cover of darkness type of thing happens. So a lot of this stuff, I just, in a way, I'm putting ideas in your head, but making suggestions. You can go, yeah, if I think about it like that, what is that? What does that mean? You don't have to have an answer. You let it percolate, and it kind of comes back to us later as we start putting the story together. And interrupt me anytime. If you're like, oh, I just had an idea, shut me down. I usually just ramble until someone else has something to say. So
I know, I'm just listening right now. That all makes sense.
And don't feel responsible to spontaneously come up with something. But when you do, please stop me. So you enter, do you have distinct impression of walking through the front doors and in the lobby, and you've got a bunch of people you got to kind of fight your way through? Or did you sneak in through another entrance? How did you get into the building?
I don't remember that. I remember like being on floors. I mean, a lot of it maybe too is I played video games. It kind of felt like, remember GoldenEye back in the day, where you're just like walking through the levels trying to like find where you got to go. Kind of felt like that. Like I'm just walking through this building, moving up floor by floor until somebody found me and stopped me. Okay.
So, and it isn't necessary that you invent connections that may not be there. You can have a very strong impression of standing outside the building, recognizing that it's night, knowing there's a kidnapped girl and you're on a mission to save her. Scene change, you're moving through hallways. Because sometimes we take things for granted in dreams in terms of like the connective tissue. It doesn't matter. We know in practical terms, I would need to open the front door, and we don't break that down either into, well, I would need to walk 3 steps to the front door. Then I would need to position my body so that I would not be overbalanced when I grab the handle and pull. I am now standing erect, and now I pull the door. I use exactly 37 pounds of pressure. We don't get that detailed in our dreams. So a lot of times we skip.
Right.
You know what you're here for. Now you're in the hallways. If you had to say the next impression of being in the hallways, was it a particular imagery, particular kind of, how would you describe the hallways? If you're like, I remember this image of being in the hallway and here's what happened.
I mean, mainly like a office kind of building environment, like just not like a lot of visual stimulation. What am I trying to say? Stumbling on my words here.
Yeah.
But it's like just empty walls and doors and kind of like white walls, just basic, minimal.
Sure. And that's okay. That's some kind of imagery. You're definitely saying this is a place of business, an office building that I'm moving through. There's something about And the broader theme too is like, again, connecting this to the idea of a massive skyscraper. That's kind of what do people do there? They work. This is a workplace. That's the purpose of it. That's how the skyscraper, pays property tax. They rent out space to businesses that do their thing. And so there may be a broader theme of this dream of business success for yourself, and phrased as a gamer in that terms of, we got to rescue the princess. I'm throwing this out there. Don't latch onto it, unless it really makes sense. You're like, oh, that's exactly it. But the idea,
that might,
yeah,
it might all those things are parts of my life, like maybe I was just thinking like I would get Princess Zelda or something.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and we're very often, so in this sense, the idea that you are a gamer, it would be very natural to have a dream that is couched in the language of a game. Games are very analogous to life. We have goals, we have obstacles, we have strategies we need to employ to overcome them. But also just the general iconography. If it's something familiar from, like you said, GoldenEye, like this very well could have been a GoldenEye mission in a sense. Wasn't maybe directly, but that idea of it was this kind of experience.
Right.
Yeah. So you do have kind of these vague-ish impressions of what it's like in there. It's very nondescript. A lot of these buildings they don't have a lot of works of art. They don't have a lot of interior decor. They are very plain and functional. So it's no surprise you would have that experience of it. Can you kind of remember the first time you got challenged by an employee and how that scenario played out, how the combat worked or anything like that? Did they sneak up behind you and zap you? That kind of thing.
It's so vague, but like I can't even remember like what day actually looked like. It's just like maybe it was more of a concept of a person, but it would just catch me off guard. Like I got caught, and then they would start like zapping me with this thing, and I'd resist because I don't remember I don't know how I knew. I knew it was gonna like take me out of the building. Like it was like that's what the purpose of it was to remove me from the building so I wouldn't get to the end. And I would just fight it until I woke up in real life. And that just repeated over and over. And it was basically the same thing. I'd make it to some room that was a little farther in, and then I'd get ripped out. And then I don't know where I would like respawn or whatever. Like I would just show up back in the building when I went to sleep. And I guess it was further along on the path, or at least where I stopped. But I just like steadily kept progressing. But it just kept repeating like that. I forget, like maybe 3 or 4 times that night. Just woke up, went right back in.
Okay, those are all great descriptions and ideas. So we're getting kind of meta on it, looking at it, which is of course what we're doing, but it's also not just purely describing the experience in a way. It's also that, what am I trying to say? It's that describing the description is the wrong way to put it. I don't know the words. Never mind. Not gonna focus on that. The reason this is great is that you had several things. So there's the concept of being found, discovered, that this is maybe in a way a stealth mission in a sense, like the ideal would be you are not faced with unnecessary impediments because you have successfully avoided them. There's that. You're caught off guard. It's an unexpected attack. It is something that, it's not like you saw the boss at the end of the hallway and you ran towards, the mini boss to engage in combat. Something found you in this process. And part of the process you were trying to go through was to avoid these things. And bam, when an obstacle finds us, sometimes if we're not anticipating it, we're caught off guard, jump scare style. And that the purpose, these people were purposely there to remove you from the building, that they were intended, solidifying the idea that these are intended to be impediments to keep you from making progress. And yet you have the experience of going back. And each time you go back on purpose, you choose to go back, you do make progress. You're a little closer towards your goal. And that this happens, maybe, to your estimation, 3 to 4 times, could have been 5, could have been 15,000. But the idea of each each time you come back, you know, you weren't back at the beginning. You weren't showing yourself, I'm outside looking up at the skyscraper again. I hate those games the most, the ones that punish you for a little mistake and they don't allow the quick save. They're like, you know, this is the checkpoint. Good luck. Fuck, I hate those games. Right? Exactly. So you're actually showing yourself that persistence in a way is making a difference. You are gaining ground. I want to stop there. Just, do you have any thoughts or responses to that? All those concepts I just threw back at you?
They're interesting to think about in this light, because it's kind of like how my life has progressed since then. But at that time, it's like I was not in this sphere I'm in now, like mentally or anything. I was in a pretty dark place in my life, I guess. But yeah, it's interesting that overcoming adversity and all that I'm now, it's so much of my life that dream would make sense to me now in these parameters. But back then I was just, I don't know, more of a defeatist. And it was strange to me that I was pushing so hard through it to get to that end of that goal and all that. And that might've been like the part that made it stick with me the most, is that I was kind of confident and in control to the extent I could be. And I did keep trying, and I didn't just give up, because at that point in my life, I was just giving up on everything. And I don't know if that has to do anything with it.
It might. Yeah. I mean, so relative to that, I was going to ask what's the temporal relationship? How do they connect in time is not the right way, but at what point did you say, have this dream? And then at what point did you kind of start changing your approach and making progress in this manner? Was it weeks apart?
That's hard to pinpoint. I mean, it's been over a decade of me doing self-development on myself. So that was more, I don't even know if I had started down that path at that point. I would say no. So it was at least a year or a couple years before that. I don't really remember.
I figured exactly. It would be there would be a gap. So it kind of feels to me like sometimes very often we consider what ifs, possibilities. We explore ways, like I was saying, thought experiments, ways of looking at the world. This and what I was writing down while you were talking is this may have been the early inklings, just a sprinkling of fairy dust, not just nothing, just it's not even there, but it is an early inkling of the challenging of that defeatist mindset. Do I have to really believe these things? What if I put in more effort? What if I had a worthy mission? What if I had something I was trying to accomplish? What would I do? And some people wake up from a dream and they have a sudden, immediate change. Sometimes we consider an idea seriously, but lightly, long before we actually implement it, or we don't believe it, or we're not ready for it. But that idea, the seed of it, was always somewhere in us. So this is seeming like it's connected to that idea of, and specifically because you did go on to make a change that's kind of reflected by this persistence towards a goal, the idea of showing yourself, if I try, I do make progress. That's a real thing. That's completely separate from, is it worth it? Do I have a worthy goal? Would I just rather be lazy and accept the consequences? Fuck it. Sometimes we decide that. There's a lot of different ways this could have gone, but at least the seed of the idea of what you became now seems to be showing up in this dream, in the formula you've presented yourself. What did I want to get to? So we have we're kind of eliding or grouping together all these multiple, to your knowledge, there wasn't any notable distinctions that really stand out between the different instances of being shocked. It was just progress, setback, and it took that specific form.
Yeah, right. It was kind of almost rhythmic by the end of it. I would get in and they knew I was in there. I knew they were coming for me. And then I think by the end of it, I was kind of moving faster, but yeah, it was so repetitive.
Gotcha.
Obstacle, keep going. Obstacle, keep going.
Yeah, that's powerful too. The idea that you would say it is rhythmic. There's something powerful in rhythm too. It's like we the waves in in the ocean, the vibration of a string on a guitar, the repetition of a chorus in music. Rhythm is very powerful. It's everywhere, and it also shows us that something is natural in some ways. Not that a guitar string is natural, but the idea of rhythms in nature. And going back to that idea we were talking about earlier too of routine, that it almost seems like the easy acceptance of the idea that it was rhythmic, that it had a flow to it, that it was going to repeat, is like saying, this is normal. This is par for the course. This is just how it works. There wasn't this struggle against the pattern itself as much as repeating it as many times as it took to get it done. There's something in there too. I don't know if that speaks to you in any specific way, or it does or doesn't.
Yeah. I mean, that's life, isn't it? Like,
no, for sure.
Every day you got something to overcome.
Yeah, and I would say there are some.
To or not.
Yeah, go ahead. Sorry.
I don't know. I was saying whether you choose to overcome it or not is your choice. But like every day you got some, even if it's just feeding yourself, it's like there's an obstacle you have to overcome every day. And maybe that was just like that represented in the dream. Or maybe it was like my higher self talking to me, being like, look, you got to put in a little more effort in life. Let's go.
Sure. What came to me was the idea that some people look at resistance, pushback, struggles, obstacles as a sign that something's going wrong. That if they were doing what they were supposed to or the right way, they wouldn't encounter obstacles. And this seems to be reassuring yourself or reinforcing the idea in your own mind that no, obstacles will exist. That itself is normal. That's not a sign I should quit or give up. It's going to happen. There is no avoiding it. But it's the persistence. It's each time you get a little closer and closer, despite the obstacles. So you were saying you had that defeatist mindset, and people say, what is it? Comedians, they do open mic nights and they bomb. Maybe one joke gets a laugh in 5 minutes of material they worked their heart out on before ever having the courage to step on stage for the first time. If they took that as the final answer, well, I guess people don't like me. They would never go back. They would never try again. They would never say, okay, why did that one joke work? Let me, so accepting periodic setbacks and failures as a normal part of the experience changes, as we were saying, changes your mindset about what to expect in terms of receiving feedback or danger signals from the world. We all look for reasons to believe we're on the right path, that we are making progress. So if we, so you're showing yourself this cycle of, yeah, there's going to be setbacks. These opposing forces are going to make it difficult to get where I'm going, but you still chose to see yourself making progress with each step forward. I'd say that's a powerful imagery to have in general, to say, it's like, I don't have to believe everything's hopeless. I don't have to believe I'll never amount to anything. I'll never get better, that I have no ability to change. I think all of that's built into that. That's great stuff. If you have,
and again,
go ahead.
Yeah. At that time, like, that concept was so foreign to me. It was like you were just saying, like, if an obstacle came on my way while I was trying to do anything, like, I've attempted and failed at so many things in life. I think more than people have, like, whatever the saying would be, like, I've failed more things than you've tried or something that. But it's like, anytime I faced some form of adversity, I'd be like, oh, I guess this isn't for me. I'm just going to, like, give up and start all over again on something else for some reason. Like, that made sense. So that dream at that time was just like a foreign concept. That's why I'm almost like, was that like a message being like transmitted from some higher form of, I don't even know. It just felt like that powerful of a thing now that I look back at it. But at the time, it made no sense to me, like, why I was having that kind of dream. Mm-hmm. And looking at my life now, it's like I seek adversity now to overcome it, because it just makes me stronger in my mind, and it helps me achieve goals. And if I run from adversity, then I end up just miserable and back in bad habits, etc. But yeah, that makes a lot of sense now.
For sure.
Thinking about it.
Well, and just that, you said, is that a message from a higher power? I believe, so I'm a very rational, skeptical, scientific. I call myself a credulous skeptic. I'm willing to believe anything. Weird, wild world out there. I don't know what's in there.
I'm similar.
Very high bar for proof. If I'm going to tell you I know something is true, it is proven in my estimation. A lot of things I can't prove. So, but I do believe the metaphorical concept of a high power communicating to you is legitimate in the sense that we don't actually know where ideas come from. I mean, why would we suddenly experience the inspiration to try something different than we had tried before? Now, sometimes we do that intentionally. We analyze the situation. We look at all the things we've tried. We make our life a scientific experiment. But sometimes there's these moments where suddenly something occurs to us that's never occurred to us before, and it changes, again, that paradigm shifting, changes the way we, or at least gives us reason to question what we've always believed to be true. Where does that come from? If you consider that psychologically, there is something in our subconscious that is always seeking to problem solve. And if we hadn't considered something, we would want to force that into consciousness to try and, again, evolutionarily keep ourselves alive. Like, maybe don't keep banging your head against the tree. Maybe use a stick with a rock on it, and that'll chop it down. I mean, it's the evolution of invention in a way, like a problem solving. But it is entirely legitimate in my mind to say that force, that power, that energy, that sudden unexpected inspiration that gives you something useful that you then implement and go, wow, my life's better. It's entirely legitimate to consider that a higher power, a God. I mean, in a way, it's like, I would say, if it wasn't God speaking to you saying, lo, I am your Lord, do this, but more like that inner voice of God, in a sense, the inner voice of the creative potential of the universe giving us messages. Right. I think that's entirely legit. And that's why I go with the wizard thing too, is like, I'm as much mystified by all this magical world we live in a way. And like, and I don't know how I do what I do. Where do my associative suggestions come from to even tell you, here's what I think I see? I have no idea. Right. So maybe God's talking to me. Hey, if you want to believe that, it's cool with me.
Oh yeah.
But certainly, I mean, if we
gotta be more.
Go ahead.
No, there's got to be more to it than just chemical reactions. And even if it's just chemical reactions, that's still pretty amazing.
Yeah. Right. Well, I think too, the proof is in the pudding, as they say. I mean, the results speak for themselves, which was actually going back to some of the books I've worked on. A lot of previous theorists on how to know if God is sending you a prophetic dream or giving you a warning in your dream, they would say, well, you judge by the results. If it leads you, if it comports with the Bible, these were a lot of Christians, it would say then it is a message from God. It's telling you to do what, emulate Jesus better, or be more kind to your fellow man, all these good Christian values. The problem with that is, if you have something that feels important in your dream, is it necessarily a message from God? You would have to implement it to see how the results came out. And if it's a bad idea and your life ends up a disaster, well, I guess you got the answer, but you can't advise people do that. So this is why I don't go into that spiritual side of things. Like I can't tell the difference between what would be a message from God and what would be a vain human self-serving 7 deadly sins type of, well, this is my desire, but should I follow through on it? I don't know. Is this God or the devil talking to me? It's like, I don't know. I'm not really the expert in that. But I think we can say in this sense, now that we do have evidence, we can look back and say this seems like that small, still voice in the dark, literally at night, speaking to you saying, here's something, here's a perspective on the world, on yourself in the world in relation to your ability to accomplish things. Consider the defeatism is not absolute, that you have not come to the end of your understanding of what is possible, consider it. That seems to be what the dream is saying, because it didn't change your life the next day. You didn't wake up the next day going, I got to hit the gym. Yeah, it wasn't that.
I wish, but no.
Yeah. If only we'd all made different choices a lot sooner, right? Well, that gets us through most of the dream. In terms of a lot of the broad things, we may have solved it in this regard,
right?
But there's still saving the girl. Do you have any distinct impression of that experience? Meeting her, the circumstances she was being held under. You had to break a door down. You had to defeat a boss. Yeah.
I don't remember a lot of that. I think just I got into the room she was in at the top of the building, whatever, like Rapunzel kind of scenario, I guess. I don't know. Probably all these childhood things from like video games and books and movies in the back of my subconscious. But I remember like I picked her up and I was like, we're getting out of here. And we got out of there. And then I woke up and I was like, okay, the story is complete. And that's when I went downstairs and saw my brother downstairs. And I told him like the whole story.
Yeah. Any visual impressions you can give me of the experience of getting into the room? It was a locked prison door, heavy metal. It was, a wooden door. It was just no different than the office space. She was just in an office room. Was she in a boardroom?
Yeah, it was just in like a random office room, like with a door. It wasn't anything crazy. It was just me, I guess, being persistent enough to get to that room. And then once I got there, it was like, just go in and help her out.
Yeah. Was she tied up in any way, strapped to a chair with duct tape, or just sitting there waiting to be rescued?
Just sitting there waiting to be rescued.
Any features of the person you can remember? They were a particular age,
I don't remember,
race,
just young,
dress,
like maybe between like 6 and 10 years old, like that kind of age range.
Yeah, it's hard to tell. But once we get to a certain age, I can't tell the difference either.
Right. Like, I guess mostly just like helpless. And I was going to be the one to help. Because I think if it was like a grown person, like a grown woman or whatever, or like even a grown man, like if it was a grown man, I probably wouldn't even have taken the adventure. I'd be like, buddy, like figure it out.
Maybe, yeah. And these are all very personal things. There is something very, I would say, universally iconic to the human experience. We all understand the inherent incapacity and vulnerability of children. They just can't do a lot of things that adults can do. I mean, obviously, size differential and knowledge differential. So there's that incapacity and therefore the vulnerability, that helplessness of like, if this problem is going to be solved, it cannot be solved by this person. They need to be helped. Mm-hmm. So there's, and I don't think it's actually, there are some dream images where this was related specifically to children. That's why a child appeared in the dream, because it is related to the concept of children. But I think here children or a child is a stand-in for those concepts, as you've said.
Right.
That if, so what I'm trying to connect that to is conceptually the concept of a problem that's not going to solve itself in a way. Does that make sense? Does that feel right? Or is there another way of saying it?
No, that makes sense. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And that, so if something's, and again, I think going with the theme of the dream is that if this problem is going to get solved, because it cannot solve itself, it's going to have to be solved by someone else. You've explored the concept in this dream of what would it be like to choose to solve a problem that's not going to go away. You never enter the building, the girl never gets saved, the problem remains. What would that experience be like, and what would happen? How would I feel about it, and how would it play out? And even then, I think you'd said, I've had experiences in my life where persistence has paid off, where it was unpleasant, it was difficult, it was all those things. I suffered, I had setbacks, but I got it done. I know I can do that. I mean, it's as getting out of bed in the morning, waking up with the alarm. I've done it. So it's not outside of my experience. And maybe at this time in your life, considering, what if I leaned into that a little bit more? Would my life change? Would I accomplish something important that simply wouldn't happen without me to make it happen? I don't know. I've said a lot.
And here we are.
Does that feel kind of right for this experience? Does that feel like it's solved?
That does.
Yeah.
That feels like, it's crazy though how it kind of aligned with my life. Like maybe that was the catalyst that set me on this trajectory to get where I am now and where I'm headed. Because now it's all about like, I'm trying to find people to solve their problems. Like I want to.
You're looking for more kids to rescue.
Right. I want to help people.
And
and it's through me overcoming my own obstacles is how I got here. So like as the dream kind of not stated, but it was like I was overcoming all these obstacles and then I could help the other person. And that's crazy. Like I've never thought of it in this level, but it's like my whole life has followed that path since I had that dream then. Weird. It's like it was the blueprint.
Yeah, it very much was. At least the earliest conscious memory you have in this sense of seriously considering that idea. Because a lot of times we dismiss ideas like, no, if I try harder, then nothing's going to happen. It's going to suck more. But sometimes we really see, is that true? Is that really true? Do I really believe that? Do I think that's real? Is it as real as it seems to me? And I love how this whole idea connects to the broader themes that we get in storytelling in general. Definitely, cinema, media of all kinds, but broadly your mythology. The idea of what makes a hero versus a villain. I mean, a villain is the guy that kidnaps the innocent kid and sticks him in a building. The hero is the person who, at the very least, wants to save the kid, wants to do good in some way. And then we have a lot of different stories of how that plays out. Well, he's tremendously competent and he succeeds. He tries his hardest and he fails. Tragedy, that kind of thing. But that is great. I think it's definitely, if we were to link it up with Jungian archetypes in a way and the kind of Joseph Campbell hero story type of thing, this is kind of you telling yourself you are capable of more if you want to try. Do you want to try?
That's powerful.
Yeah. Oh, it does. I mean, that's, you talk about where does motivation come from? Sometimes it comes from that. I can be more than I am. I really can. Yeah. Whoa, wait a minute. That's possible. And we get our mind blown just a little bit there.
That's a fact.
Yeah. Oh, that's great. I love this. Oh, as usual for like 90% of this, I'm like, I don't know what I'm going to say. And then stuff just falls out of my head. If someone wants to believe I'm being inspired by God, I'll take it. I'm not pretending to speak for any higher power, but I hope if it gets good results, then that's exactly what it was.
Hey, yeah. Where were you whenever this happened 15 years ago? This is good. I'm glad we did this.
Right on. Yeah, no, and I'd be happy to have you back, another time, maybe not immediately, but the idea to look at maybe some of your recurring dreams and see how they might have also contributed to that. I'm always welcome to have, I always make people feel welcome to come back for another episode. So,
oh yeah, for sure. We should do it again sometime.
Yeah, I just try to give folks, viewers, a variety, not the same person every week. So,
for sure.
But yeah, if you feel like we've achieved enough of an answer to give you something to think about and a real feeling of significance, I'm satisfied.
Oh yeah. Yeah, I think so.
Good deal. Okay, well then I'll just say to everybody out there listening, this has been our friend John Sacco from the East Coast USA, personal development coach, Instagram at RealJohnSacco. It's with 2 C's, SACCO. Links in the description. And for my part, I'll say, would you kindly like, share, subscribe, tell your friends? Always need more volunteer dreamers, viewers for the video games. You can acquire at BenjaminTheDreamWizard.com. Hey, it's my name, same as the YouTube channel. That is where you'll find MP3 episodes of all of these interviews, an encyclopedia of dream-related people and terms, a complete listing of the entire catalog of historical dream literature I've got out there. Most recent release, Book 15, The World of Dreams by Havelock Ellis. Working on Book 16, and that's my own housekeeping. Thanks for that. And I'll just say, John, thanks for being here. I've enjoyed talking to you.
Yeah, thanks for having me. Same. It was a good talk.
Good deal. And everybody out there, thanks for listening.